Omayma now will continue different hardship experience.
So it was cramped. The odour of sweat hung in the air. The atmosphere felt dizzy. The panic was palpable. 12 hours had already passed. And there was no food and little water. We hadn't slept for 2 days. The night was painfully long, trying to save the injured people among us with little or no medication supplies. I'm speaking here from when we started in Al-Fatih Mosque. Even when we asked for an injection that simply cost £3 to save a life, the money was taken but nothing was brought. Security forces repeatedly attempted to break in. We were distressed from that. The thugs who were being protected by the army were surrounding us. My siblings and I were inside Al-Fatih Mosque along with 900 other people, including men, women and children. Speaking with some of those people, it has come clear to us that we were facing death, either by being tortured or burned alive. Each of these predicaments were worse than the other, and they were horrifying to think of. So I tried hard to push these thoughts aside and put my faith in God. I didn't understand why it had to be either of those predicaments. What had we done to deserve all this? The people inside simply wanted to go home. I was not really concerned about myself as much I was for my siblings and the people with me. My phone, a line to the world, began to beep. It was running out of battery. I tried to find a charger for my phone. I then realized finding a charger among 900 people was impossible. So I tried to take the nap until curfew time was over, hoping that my siblings and I could go home. Curfew time ended and people started to leave. But how could we just trust the coup security forces? How could we believe that they would safely let us go home? The reality was anyone who left the building was either detained or shot with a live bullet. My younger brother Ibrahim decided to go and see for himself if this was truly the case. He returned after 5 minutes and told us that the situation could not possibly get any worse. Anyone who thought of setting foot outside the mosque doors was either shot or beaten at or thrown in a police van. I just had to wait and pray for the best. I received my final phone call from a news station. It was my final call because it was at that stage when the coup security force stormed in the mosque. I was told there were weapons inside. However, we were the ones being attacked with nothing to save our lives. In a matter of seconds, everyone had rushed to the furthest corner in the mosque. I didn't understand. I couldn't conceive what was happening. But soon it hit me when I heard the sound of a bomb. I screamed. I didn't know where my siblings were, and I wondered if this were what I would die. What was that sound? A lot of thoughts rushed into my mind. Actually, there was no time for anything to rush to my mind. My brother came. He came running towards us. The bombs blasted. Suddenly, I was pushed against the wall by my brother, my smallest brother. He wrapped his arms around me and my sisters, shielding us with his body to protect us. I cried. I couldn't imagine anything worse happening to us. I knew that the building was going to collapse on top of us, burning us alive. Tear gas was fired at us, not once, not twice, but 3 times, just at the spot that we were standing in. I thought we were going to suffocate to death. I noticed a bunch of guys attempt to open the doors to let the air in, because then people were already trying to save their last breath by covering their faces with a piece of cloth. I didn't know what had happened next, because at that stage I had fainted. When I woke up, I was outside the mosque with one of my sisters, Fatima. We were surrounded by a horrific scene, somewhat closer to an action movie. The faces of people that I recognized were almost amongst the ones that were in the mosque with us, were sitting quietly outside the mosque, the main door. The scenes wasn't calm or quiet though. The army security forces and main thugs were grabbing people, trying to get a hold of them. I started to hear live bullets again, but this time it was from the police stand standing right in front of us, shooting live bullets into the sky, looking towards the bottom. As I was looking towards the bottom of the steps, the army was firing towards us. I didn't understand what was going on. Many of the thugs were carrying the CC's pictures. They were kicking us, punching us, and trying to tear off our scarves, or my hijab. Security forces just silently watched and did nothing. All I could think about was where my siblings were. After finally grasping what was going on, we stood up along with the men who were with us. We told us not to worry, the girls will be going home. They took us and they said they will take us somewhere safe. We started walking down the step. Security forces' hands, as well as thugs' hands, were hitting us from all directions. Then the most horrific and unexpected thing happened. The beating was one thing, but the next part was the second. I was being grabbed by the thugs. They were violating my body, trying to touch any part they could reach. I was put to the ground. My dress that I was wearing was pulled off violently. It was ripped into half. My scarf was taken off me. My top was taken off me, and my trousers were being pulled off me. I didn't know what was going on. It was the most scariest part of my life. I was pulled down to the ground by them. I felt like I was the prey and they were the ones on top of me, tormenting me. I could hear my sister screaming as they tried forcing me into the van, but she demanded that she wouldn't leave without me. I didn't know what my fate would be. There was a guy captured us who put himself at risk. He pulled me and threw me in the police box. For a few seconds I stood. I wasn't sure if I was still in their squad. I wasn't grasping what was happening to me. There were more guys going in the van. I burst out crying. They squeezed more than 60 men in a van that couldn't fit 20. My sister started shouting at them, "How do you want us girls to squeeze ourselves with these men?" He let us stand outside for a second. My sister's skirt was ripped from the back after being sexually harassed by the thugs. Suddenly we noticed some of mobile phones on the side. My sister took a grasp of one of them and she said to my dad, she called my dad quickly and said, "Dad, we've been taken in one of the cars. We don't know where Brahim or Sumaya is." I'm still crying and I really wanted to speak to my dad at this stage. And I take the phone off her and I tell him, "Dad, I was about to say I was sexually harassed, but she took the phone off me, telling me my dad could not take it if he hears such a thing." The police officer came into the van and he pointed the gun at my sister's forehead and he said to her, "Give me the phone." She didn't want to give him the phone and he said to her, "If you don't give me the phone, I'll shoot you." So pointing the gun at her head, I begged my sister to let go, but she didn't want to until some guy came and took it from the back. When we asked him how he was doing such a thing, he answered was, "I'm only a human given orders." Half an hour passes and the men inside this starts for water. They just want some water. Some of them lost consciousness and some of them were injured. We asked for water and the man inside the police van said, "What do you want me to do?" 10 minutes later, we finally got the water, and my sister started pouring it to them from the mini window of the police van. One side in their mouth and the other. The demand for water kept going on for 20 minutes. After suffering in this van for 3 hours or more with bullets of security forces being shot at the van to the extent that the police officer himself with us got scared. We wanted to ask where we were going, there was no reply. When we asked, "Can we let our family know where my sisters are, my brother? Will you bring us to the same place?" Still no reply. And so on until we finally reached our destination. I still couldn't grasp what had just happened to me. I hear someone outside saying, "This is Torah military campus." We go in and the door van suddenly opened. A bunch of soldiers were standing in front of us. The van door opened and the men's door also opened. Then suddenly the men were being given out and pulled and dragged in the most inhumane way. Next was our turn. We knew it was because the police officer yells, "Your turn." My sisters and I look at him in the shock. "Are you serious?" my sister screamed. "You want me to go down when these soldiers are there? Last time you told us we will be safe, my sister was close to being raped right in front of my eyes. I'll not go down. Get me a lady to take us elsewhere, otherwise I won't." The police officer gives out at her and gives order to be taken by force, but luckily a guy said, "Leave them." I look at the second door of the van, and there's still 2 or 3 people inside lying there. God knows if they're still alive. After numerous attempts to take me and my sister, they came up with the solution to move the army men away, and so we can go down. We walked down the place where we were basically a desert. All you could see was sand. We were the first van to arrive. My sister and I walk inside this huge gate, and all I can see is the men that we were with on their knees, their hands behind their backs, behind their heads, and they were being searched in the most disgusting manner in order to search for their belongings, if they had any after the Belfast storming in. They took us to the other police officers sitting at the table and the questioning began. "Where's our siblings?" we asked, but we was ignored. Instead, they asked us about personal details, especially after their name were Irish citizens. They made their phone calls, and through the call I hear, "Yes sir, they can speak Arabic. Yes sir, they are wearing Islamic clothes." We didn't know what the definition of Islamic clothes was. We screamed at him and he raised his hands, and he was about to hit us when my sister's voice got even louder and told him not to even think to lay a finger on us. They grabbed us and we were about to be thrown inside a dark room, but we strongly refused. We told them I couldn't breathe in such places. The reason was that we just wanted to see if our siblings would come. After putting all the men in one cell, my sister and I stand outside and calmed down. We stayed there for an hour or so, not sleeping for 24 hours. We slept, we took a little nap until the door gate opened. More people from the same mosque. I looked through the people, but there was no sign of my brother or my sister. Each of them was being treated and was really heartbreaking to just add to my grief, and they're also sent to the cell. We waited for half an hour and the gates opened again. Thankfully, I noticed my brother. I screamed and jumped Ibrahim, but my relief didn't last. Not only was the police officer yelling at me, but my brother's hand, it was wrapped in his t-shirt, it was wrapped in blood. Unfortunately, he quickly asks, "Where's Sumaya?" he asks. "Why are you crying, Omayma? Do you know anything? What happened to you? Did they do anything to you?" I couldn't answer him. He was pushed on his knees with his hands behind his back. "Ibrahim, what happened to you? Forget about me," he replies. "Where's Sumaya?" They didn't even let us speak to him. They screamed at us whenever we tried to say a word. Hour passes by and 3 vans came with over 60 people in each van. People beaten with serious injuries with live bullets, but still no sign of Sumaya. It was around 8 p.m. and the gate opened. This is supposed to be the last van expected. We see a group of girls and thankfully we spot Sumaya. We can speak to her also. She was also put on her knees with her hands behind her back. Our first concern was the doctor. Some concern for the doctors had medical equipment. They didn't want Ibrahim nor the injured to take any of the medical equipment. We had to plead to them to be able to use it. Police officer finally inspected and the doctor started their job. But the agony began when all you could hear was people screaming, especially from those taking bullets in different parts of their body. The medical equipment too short and the doctor began to ask for more, but they refused to receive no medical equipment no matter how hard they tried. There were men in really bad conditions where you could just tell that this was their final breath. The night came and they gathered us in a room. It was filled with mice and insects. And as far as I know, for the men, there were 700 in only one cell that can only fit 8 people. The night comes, the day ends, but the grief only then began. It was a quiet night. Everyone's energy was lost. Those who were injured, they fell asleep at their spot, half sleeping and half trying to endure the pain. We were expected to leave, or at least that's what they told us. We didn't see Ibrahim for the rest of that night or the morning. Everyone was hungry. We hadn't eaten for nearly 3 days now. An hour passes and we get some food. It was called food, but looked nothing like it. A piece of bread that was covered in sand and insects, spread with the tiniest piece of rotten cheese and thrown to us at the ground. This was our food. My sisters and I were overwhelmed from what had happened. We couldn't place anything in our mouth, and I guess the look of food just really made us sure we didn't want. There was nothing to do, just my sisters and I in an empty dark room. The men, well, they were a completely different story. The men's voice from time to time got very loud. We were trying to tell what was happening to them, but the voices was a bit far. From the sound of it, I guess that they were protesting inside. They were chanting, and their chants got louder, but they weren't chanting against the security forces. They were chanting for something different. Air. We want to breathe some air is what they heard from them. The sewage had leaked in on them, covering up half their legs, and the police officers were just completely ignorant, as if nothing had happened. The rooms my sister and I were began to get stuffy, and we asked to just sit outside the door. Again, the truth was we wanted to know anything about my brother, because as far as we know, all the injured was put with the rest. They violently rejected and made us feel like we were asking for something other than our basic human right. The night came and they called our names. The men were blindfolded and my sisters and I were put in a queue. They didn't tell us where they were taking us. The scariest part was that my brother was not with us. We got into the police van and 2 minutes later we had arrived. Everyone inside the van, for a second, were delighted. They thought they're letting us go. Happiness didn't last because as we were being pulled down the stairs, we could see everyone sitting on the floor waiting their turn. We were taken to a table with 3 police officers along with a Turkish journalist. This was around 3 a.m. It was at night. "What is happening?" we asked. "Well, we are being investigated with." Without my brother, we felt feeling worried. They sent someone off to get him after we strongly refused to begin speaking. Fatima was the first. For her, it all began like a normal investigation, something like what we see here on TV. Your name, your address, your date of birth. "You are charged with 16 charges, he said. "What? 16? "Yes, killing protesters, burning up Al-Baqiya police station, protesting, being a part of a terrorist organization. These laws were only reinforced after we were let go." At this stage, me and my sisters burst out laughing. We didn't think they were actually serious. So my sister replies with a couple of questions herself. "Did I do these while being surrounded in the mosque?" "Yes," the police officer replies. "So, is it possible?" "Where's the Al-Baqiya police station? We never lived in Egypt, so we didn't know we were in Fatih Mosque until we were inside, and we didn't know where anything was." "And when did it burn?" "It is 10 minutes away from where you were trapped, and it was burned while you were surrounded." "Why are you investigating with me in a military campus and not in a police station? And why can't I make a phone call nor see a lawyer?" "Basically, there's no space in the police station and no phone calls can be made," he said. "How can you tell me that I've been taken for protesting? You charged me for killing protesters." He replied mockingly, "What can I say, a Bollywood movie." He started to write down his own little answer. Here my sister raised her voice and said, "Are you investigating with yourself or with me?" You write down what I'm saying, not what you want to think. The Turkish journalist was next, but there was a surprise for him. The councillor and the lawyer came. He introduced us to him. Well, it just lasted for a second. However, he managed to let us know that my family and our councillor, they came, but they let them know that we weren't inside the campus. While Metin, the Turkish journalist, was being investigated with, they got a 14-year-old boy and gave him to one of the police officers sitting down. They started to investigate with him until one man came and introduced himself as a lawyer. He wanted to sit with the boy. They did not only refuse, but they also yelled at him. The lawyer began to leave, but before that, he let the little boy that he didn't have to sign if he didn't want to. The police officer threatened the lawyer to seize him. When the boy was asked to sign and refuse, the police officer claimed that if the little boy had inside, he would be jeopardizing his own life. Sumayya's turn was next. The funny thing is, he didn't even want to ask me or Sumayya. He said, I'll be taking your sister's words for it. And the same happened for me. Then Ibrahim came. Before Ibrahim was taken to be investigated with, he told us how bad the situation was inside the cell. He let us know that he would rather die than last another hour.
If at any stage you feel this emotion, I know you mentioned about Ibrahim, so I know we will have the chance to speak, but we'll have a special thing for Ibrahim at the end.
The investigation was finished, and we were dragged back inside the police van. Everyone returned to their cell, but my brother's face said, "Save me." We were in a complete shock when we noticed the police officer lying inside waiting for us. So as a normal reaction, we stood outside the door cell waiting for him to leave. However, this is not what they expected. They wanted us to quietly walk inside where there was just a man waiting for us. It was completely okay for them, for girls to be locked alone with a guy. Both ours and police officers' voices began to rise. Their excuse was he's asleep. They didn't want to wake him up. Fine, we'll wait outside, we replied. If you don't go in quietly, we'll be taking you by force. This is how we responded. At that moment, my sisters and I were frightened, but we tried so hard not to make it visible. We felt the evil intention they had to the only 3 girls in a military campus. After us insisting that the only way we'd agree is that they allow our brother with us, for some reason, that solution was far from what they had intended. We still never gave up, which resulted in them taking the police officer leaving us alone again. We woke up the next day with the hope of being released, since this is what they had promised. On the other hand, my body became really fatigued. I felt really dizzy. It was my mom's visit, and she told us that we had to give, half our visit was given to the people searching, the lady with us, the police lady, and there was a lady in charge of us. She was a killer. She's in charge of us in the room. She controls your movement, your breath. She controls everything you do. And she told us that in order to do that, we can only give her cigarettes. So we either had to have cigarettes or we don't live. We stayed there for 3 months, and then when we were taken to court to be released, the judge only said to us 3 simple words. He said to us, "I hope those 3 months taught you a lesson." He didn't have anything to say for why he kept us for 3 months and why my brother still remains behind bars. He just said, "I hope you